Have you ever wondered what your thoughts actually look like? Not as ideas, but as pure, raw energy? Well, today we're diving deep into the brain's electrical world with a fascinating technology called electroencephalography, or as you'll hear me call it, EEG.
I mean, just think about it. What if we could tune into the live broadcast happening inside our own heads 24/7? That's really what an EEG lets us do. It's our window into that incredible symphony of electrical pulses, the very energy that defines how we think, how we feel, and even how we sleep.
So, to decode the brain signal, we first need to meet the orchestra. Our brain activity is this amazing blend of different frequencies, or brain waves. So let's get to know the main players, shall we? First up, we've got delta waves. Think of these as the slow, deep bass notes of the brain. They're these big, powerful waves that are dominant when adults are in that deep, dreamless sleep. They're also super common in babies.
Next, you've got your theta waves. This is kind of like the brain's chill-out music. You see them a lot in young children, but for adults, they pop up when you're getting drowsy, maybe in a deep state of relaxation, or even meditation.
Now, alpha waves are just so cool. This is basically the brain's idling rhythm. When you close your eyes and just relax, this rhythm takes over in the back of your head. But here's the wild part. The second you open your eyes or even just focus on a thought, poof, it vanishes.
And finally, we've got the really fast-paced beta waves. This is the soundtrack to a busy mind. When you're locked in, concentrating, solving a tough problem, or even feeling a bit anxious, your frontal lobes are just buzzing with all this beta activity.
So here's the key thing to remember. An EEG is never just one of these waves. It's always a mixture of all of them. The best way to think about it is like a recipe. The brain waves are your ingredients, and changing the amount of each one, a little more beta, a little less alpha, completely changes the brain state that we see. Okay, so we know what we're listening for. We know the different instruments in the orchestra. But how in the world do we actually capture this incredibly faint electrical symphony from outside the skull? Well, the process itself is pretty wild. It involves placing all these electrodes on the scalp to pick up these teeny tiny signals from millions of neurons firing together. But the signal is so faint, and it has to travel through your skull and scalp, which kind of muffles it, so it has to be amplified thousands of times and cleaned up before it's even readable. And this brings us to the fundamental trade-off of EEG. Its superpower is timing. I mean, it can track brain activity with millisecond by millisecond precision, which is just incredible. But its weakness? Location. We know exactly when something happens in the brain, but it's much, much harder to know precisely where it's coming from. You know, getting a clean signal is a whole other battle. The slightest little eye blink or clenching your jaw can create this huge electrical artifact that swamps the brain signal. Even the electrical outlets on the wall can interfere, creating this constant hum that technologists have to filter out. It's a real challenge.
So, we have our noisy, amplified, and maybe slightly blurry signal. How on earth does anyone make sense of these squiggly lines? For neurologists, it's literally like learning to read a brand new language. So what does a normal, healthy reading even look like? Well, in a typical adult who's just resting with their eyes closed, neurologists expect to see this nice, organized alpha rhythm in the back of the brain and that faster beta activity up front. It's the picture of a brain at peace.
But in certain conditions, that peaceful picture can just shatter. An abnormal EEG might suddenly show this massive burst of spike and wave activity. That's a classic signature for some types of seizures. Or it might show that one side of the brain is suddenly way slower than the other, which could point to a problem like a stroke or a tumor. To a trained eye, some of these abnormal signals are just unmistakable. I love this one expert's description of finding a very nice, juicy spike that is unequivocal and very clearly abnormal. You can just hear it, right? These are the kinds of clear signatures that make EEG such a powerful tool for diagnosing epilepsy. Okay, but what about conditions where the signs are way more subtle? Researchers are now pushing EEG to its absolute limits to find hidden clues for really complex conditions, like depression. And here's the thing. Unlike a seizure, there's no single depression spike that just jumps off the page. Not at all. The signatures of psychiatric disorders are hidden in these incredibly complex, subtle patterns of brain activity. You can't just see them by looking. You have to find them with some pretty advanced computer analysis.
But here's what's so amazing. When researchers compare large groups of people, these really consistent patterns start to emerge. For instance, people with depression often show a different ratio of alpha to beta waves, and they tend to have more alpha activity on the right side of their brain. a pattern that's been linked to more negative emotions.
And this data has real power. This graph here, it's called an ROC curve. Now it looks complicated, but all you really need to know is this. Because that blue curve is way up and to the left, far away from that straight line, it means a computer model, using only EEG data, could tell who had depression with pretty good accuracy. It performs significantly better than just random chance.
And you know what's making all this possible? Artificial intelligence. AI and machine learning are the key to unlocking this new frontier. They're what allow researchers to sift through all this noisy data and find those subtle, predictive patterns, potentially turning EEG into a real diagnostic tool for mental health.
So all of this is pointing toward a really exciting future, one where listening to the brain isn't something that's just stuck in a hospital lab. So where is this technology heading?
Well, the next wave is wearable EEG. Imagine new devices that use dry electrodes so you can forget about all that sticky gel, that you could wear comfortably at home. These things can connect to our smartphones and use cloud computing to analyze our brain activity over long periods of time, out in the real world.
I mean, picture this scenario for a future mental health checkup. You wear a comfortable little device that collects your brainwave data. Over time, an AI learns your unique brain patterns, your personal baseline. It could then detect subtle shifts, giving you objective insights that could lead to much earlier diagnoses and more personalized treatments.
Which leaves us with this final, really fascinating question. You know, just like we check our blood pressure to monitor our heart health, could a wearable EEG one day become a routine part of how we monitor our mental well-being? The secrets are all there, playing out in the brain's amazing electrical symphony, and we're finally learning how to listen.